Welcome to Science for Sleepy Minds. You can let those words arrive like a soft blanket being laid over the end of your day. A small signal to your mind that it is time to slow down. This is a quiet space, just for you for these next few moments. A space where you do not have to answer anyone, or rush anywhere or solve anything. You've already done enough for today. Right now you're allowed to simply lie there, breathe and listen. Maybe you are a little tired, or more than a little. Maybe your body feels heavy and worn out, or your mind keeps circling around the same thoughts. You might be restless, or you might already feel yourself starting to sink into the mattress. However you arrive here, it is okay. You do not have to be calm before you listen. The calm can slowly grow around you, like a quiet night settling over a busy city. As you listen, you might find your attention drifting. You might catch every word for a while, then lose the thread, then return again. Or you might fall asleep after a few minutes, and that's completely fine. You do not need to treat this like a lesson or a lecture. There is no quiz at the end, no need to remember details or dates. These words are meant to be like soft waves at the edge of an ocean, coming and going, comforting you whether or not you notice each one. This is a kind of bedtime story made of science. Not fast or intense, but slow and gentle. Tonight, we are going to wander together into the desert, under a sky scattered with stars, and rest beside ancient shapes of stone. We will think about the pyramids of Egypt and the quiet spaces beneath them, the silent secrets buried in rock and sand, not as something frightening, but as something calm and patient, waiting to be understood. You might already have images in your mind, tall triangular silhouettes rising from the desert, pictures from books or films, stories of pharaohs and treasure. In this space we will set aside anything loud or dramatic. We will walk slowly instead through the softer side of those stories. Bits of geology and archaeology, gentle human history, and the quiet architecture hidden under the surface. Before we go there, though, you can make yourself a little more comfortable. If you like, you can shift your pillow, loosen your jaw, or tuck the blanket a little closer around you. Let your body settle in its own way, in its own time. This is your moment. Each small movement you make now is like arranging cushions in a peaceful corner, preparing a safe little nest for your thoughts to rest in. This audio is here for two things: to help you relax and to share some soft, curious ideas about the world. You do not have to choose between them. You can fall asleep halfway through a sentence and your mind will still have brushed gently against ancient stones, quiet fossils, and the slow work of time. If you are awake for longer, you might enjoy picturing the scenes in your imagination, as if you hadn't been set down for the night near the edge of the desert. Either way, you're doing it right. If you discover that this kind of sleepy science helps you, if it becomes a small ritual that makes your evenings easier, you are always welcome to support the channel however you like, maybe with a like or a subscription. And then, once that thought has passed, you can let it drift away again, like a ripple that fades on a still lake. There is nothing you need to do now, no buttons to press, no decisions to make, just the simple act of listening or not listening and breathing. Let's begin with that breathing. You do not need to change anything dramatically. Just notice for a moment the natural rhythm that is already there, the way air enters your body and leaves again without any effort, like tides that have been moving in and out for as long as you've been alive. If it feels good, you can gently invite your breath to slow. Perhaps you breathe in through your nose, counting silently to 3. 1, 2, 3. Then a soft pause, and then you let the air go through your mouth or your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The exhale can be a little longer than the inhale, like a sigh of relief. If counting doesn't feel restful, you can simply imagine each breath as a wave, lifting as you inhale and falling as you exhale. Notice the coolness just at the entrance of your nose as the air comes in. Notice the slight warmth as it leaves. With each inhale, you might imagine drawing in calm like a pale golden light. With each exhale, you could imagine letting go of the day, letting it pour out of you like sand slipping quietly through open fingers. There is no rush. The breath finds its own slow pace. As your breathing settles, you can gently scan your body, as if you were turning your attention into a soft lamp, shining just enough to notice, but not enough to disturb. Start at the top of your head. Notice your forehead. If there is any tightness there, any little frown lines clinging on from the day, so you might let them soften, as if someone had smoothed a warm hand over them. Let your attention drift down to your eyes. You do not need to open them or close them in any particular way, just allow them to rest. Imagine them as two small pools of quiet water, undisturbed by any ripples. If they were working hard today, looking at screens or bright lights, you can thank them and let them relax with no more tasks to do. Move down to your jaw. Many of us hold the day here without realizing it, teeth pressed together, muscles tight. If you notice that now, you can loosen the jaw a little. Maybe let your teeth part, your tongue rest softly in your mouth. Imagine a gentle breeze passing over stone, gradually smoothing away tension. Let that awareness drift down into your neck and shoulders. Imagine them sinking a little more deeply into the mattress or pillow beneath you, as if someone had added an extra layer of softness underneath. With each exhale, the shoulders can drop by a tiny, almost invisible amount, like grains of sand slipping down the side of a dune. You do not have to force it. Just the idea is enough. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the way the ribs expand to make space for breath and then settle back again. There is a quiet rhythm there, steady and patient. You might imagine that your chest is like a small sheltered room, with warm light flickering in time with your breath, glowing a little brighter as you inhale, dimming slightly as you exhale, never going out, just resting. Let your awareness move down into your arms, your elbows, your wrists, your hands. Are your hands clenched or resting? If they are curled into fists without you noticing, you can slowly unfold them, allowing the fingers to soften and lengthen. You might imagine placing in each palm a tiny smooth stone from the desert, warmed by the sun all day and now cooling in the night air. The stones are light, comforting, familiar, down through your torso, your back, all the way into your hips and legs. Notice the contact between your body and the bed. The mattress is like a gentle plateau of its own, supporting you without asking anything from you. Your hips, your thighs, your knees, shins, ankles, feet, all of them can become a little heavier, a little more relaxed, as if gravity itself were a soft, reassuring hand, holding you here, safe. If you notice any place that still feels tight or restless, there is no need to fix it. Just breathe into it, in your imagination. Let a breath drift there, like a warm breeze moving through a quiet room, and then drift out again. Your body does not have to be perfectly relaxed. It just has to be here. That is enough. As your body settles, you might start to picture yourself somewhere else, still lying down, still supported, but now in the open air. Imagine that the bed beneath you has become a soft mat laid on fine, cool sand. Above you, the sky is deep and dark and wide, sprinkled with stars so numerous that you cannot count them. There is no ceiling, no lights from buildings, just the endless dome of the night. In the distance, rising from the gradual slopes of the desert, you can see them, pale shapes against the darker sky. The pyramids of Giza, or others like them, silent and still. Their sides are softened by the darkness. Not sharp triangles, but gentle slopes, like giant mountains that have been carefully carved into order. The air is cooler than it was during the day, and with each imaginary breath, you can feel that coolness as a calm, steady presence. The desert around you is quiet. Maybe there is a faint whisper of wind moving across the sand and brushing softly against the stone blocks. You might hear the tiniest shifting of grains, the almost inaudible sound of sand settling. Time here feels slow, as if every second is stretched a little longer, giving you more room to rest inside each moment. You decide in your mind to rise slowly and walk toward the one of the pyramids. The sand beneath your feet is firm on the surface, soft just underneath. Each step makes a barely noticeable crunch, like breaking a very thin layer of sugar on top of a cake. You do not hurry. There is nowhere you need to go that is more important than this quiet walk. As you draw closer, the pyramid looms, but not in a threatening way. It feels more like an ancient, kindly presence, a guardian that has been standing here for thousands of years, watching the same stars, feeling the same winds, while generations of people came and went. It has seen bright sunrises and fiery sunsets, storms and clear skies, and it has remained steady through all of it. If you reach out in your imagination and touch the surface of the stone, you might feel that it is slightly rough beneath your fingertips, the edges worn by time. During the day it would be warm, maybe even hot from the sun, but now in the desert night the stone has cooled. It holds on to a memory of heat, but lets it go slowly, sharing it with the air. Standing beside this enormous structure, you might feel small, but in a reassuring way. Not insignificant, just part of something wider and older, like standing at the edge of the ocean or in a forest of very tall trees. The pyramid does not ask anything of you. It simply stands, existing, a solid shape against the sky. You know in a general way that there are rooms and corridors inside this pyramid, that somewhere deeper in there is, or once was, a tomb. You may have heard stories about hidden chambers, lost treasures, and secret passages. In this quiet space we set aside the drama of those tales and look instead at the simple, steady reality. Beneath the visible triangle, beneath the surface of the desert, there are layers of stone shaped by humans and by nature, silent spaces carved into rock, foundations and bedrock and fossils that tell stories of oceans and ages that came long before any pharaoh. So you might ask yourself, softly, what really lies beneath these pyramids? What supports them? What sleeps below the sand that surrounds them? What does the land itself look like if you could gently peel away the layers? These are the silent secrets we will explore tonight. Not dangerous secrets, but quiet ones. Facts gently uncovered by patient hands and curious minds, using light and tools and careful observation. Here, the word secret does not mean something forbidden or frightening. It is closer to the feeling of opening an old, forgotten drawer in a peaceful house and finding letters or photographs that tell you little more about someone's life. The pyramids and the ground beneath them hold traces of people, of climate, of time. Much of that is already known to archaeologists and geologists. Some of it is still under study. All of it can be approached with respect and calm. Together, we will wander through those ideas. We will talk about how the land itself is shaped, about the rock that lies beneath the pyramids like a sleeping giant. We will look at the way water and wind prepared the stage long before a single stone was cut, and as we do, you can continue to rest, letting your mind glide between the present moment in your bed and the imagined desert beneath the stars. To begin, imagine that you could gently see beneath the surface of the sand around you, as if the ground had become a clear layer of glass. Under the pale, shifting grains, there is something more solid, more permanent. Rock. The pyramids we are visiting in our thoughts stand near a remarkable river, the Nile, a long, winding thread of water that has shaped the land of Egypt for ages. Even if you have never been there, you might have seen pictures of a river, broad and slow, lined with green plants on either side with dry desert beyond. For thousands of years the Nile flooded regularly. Each year as the waters rose they spread thin layers of rich dark silt over the fields. As the waters fell again, they left behind soil that was perfect for crops. This rhythm of flooding and drying made a narrow band of land along the river incredibly fertile. People could grow food, raise animals, and build villages. Just beyond that green strip, though, lay the desert. Dry, stony, and seemingly empty. At first, desert and river might sound like opposites. One is full of water and life, the other is hot and bare. But for the people who built the pyramids, they worked together perfectly. The river gave life, food, and transport. The desert gave something else that was just as important: stable dry ground. A place where stone structures could stand without being soaked or eroded by water. A place where the dead could be buried and remain undisturbed by floods. The Giza Plateau, where the most famous pyramids stand, is a raised stretch of limestone bedrock. You can imagine it as a gentle stone shelf rising slightly above the nearby land. This bedrock lies beneath the sand, beneath the gravel, beneath any modern structures or ancient remains. It is the quiet base, the foundation on which everything else rests. Limestone is a kind of rock made long ago from the remains of tiny sea creatures, shells, coral, microscopic organisms drifting in ancient waters. There was a time millions of years before any human walked there, when this piece of earth was covered by a shallow sea. The water was full of life. When those small creatures died, their shells and skeletons settled on the seafloor layer upon layer. Over vast stretches of time, with pressure and chemical changes, they turned into stone. If you could hold a piece of that limestone in your hand, you might find small fossils in it, spirals of shells, hints of once living forms, now preserved as delicate patterns in the rock. Even if you cannot see them clearly in your imagination, you can picture the idea that the pyramids do not rise simply from dirt, but from stone that was once a living ocean floor. Ancient waves, now frozen into solid rock. This means that beneath the pyramids are traces of entwined histories. The deep history of our planet when the area was underwater, and the more recent history of human civilization when people carved that stone and stacked it into monumental shapes. The ground beneath your imagined feet is, in a way, full of whispers from both worlds. Tiny marine creatures that never knew their shells would become part of a pharaoh's monument. Workers whose hands cut the blocks that still rest on that ancient seabed. The builders of the pyramids did not know all of this geology in the modern scientific sense, but they understood the land in a practical way. They knew from experience that the plateau was firm. They knew that the rock could be quarried, shaped, and trusted. They chose this site not at random, but because the foundation was reliable. The bedrock would not shift easily. It would not be washed away by the Nile's floods. It would hold the weight of millions of stone blocks for thousands of years. Imagine the care it would take to decide where to place such a structure. Once you begin to build a pyramid, there is no picking it up and moving it somewhere else. The decision about where to start must be made with deep confidence. So before the first block was laid, workers and planners would have examined the ground, leveled it, prepared it. In your mind, you can picture teams of workers smoothing and trimming the surface of the bedrock, removing high spots, filling in low spots, creating a level, peaceful plain. In some places, instead of removing all the natural rock, they left parts of the underlying hill in place, building around it. In this way, the pyramid and the plateau became intertwined. The natural land rose up to meet the human-made stone. The hill itself became part of the core of the structure, a hidden partner that no one could see from the outside but that still quietly supported the mass above. This shaping of the ground was like sculpting the land into a cradle for stone rather than for a child, but still with that same sense of support and protection. The builders made sure that when the heavy blocks began to rise, they would be resting in a kind of stone bell, snug and stable. As you lie in your own bed now, you might sense an echo of that feeling, a base that holds you gently, expecting no effort from you, simply carrying your weight while you rest. If you could look at a cross-section of the Giza Plateau, you might see layers upon layers of rock, gently sloping and stacked, like pages in an unimaginably old book. Each layer represents a period of time, the slow deposition of sediment, the compression and solidification of shells and sand. It is a record that was written long, long before us, and yet we can read it now if we know how to look. Compared to those deep spans of time, our human lives are brief. Our busy days and anxious nights flash across the surface like quick shadows from passing birds. The rock beneath the pyramids has remained mostly the same throughout all of it. It simply lies there, holding the weight, bearing the sun and the wind, watching the slow drift of stars overhead. There is something comforting about that. You might think of your own worries, the ones that sometimes keep you awake. They can feel big, sharp, and overwhelming. But viewed against the backdrop of such immense, calm time, they start to seem a little smaller, not unimportant, but less absolute. The bedrock beneath the pyramids has seen entire kingdoms rise and fall, languages change, cities grow and crumble, and through all of it, the ground has remained steady, stable, quiet. Tonight, you're allowed to borrow a little of that stability. As you lie there, you can imagine that beneath your bed there is not only flooring and soil, but a layer of ancient rock, going down and down into the planet, solid, unmoving, gently supporting you without complaint. The same earth that holds the pyramids holds you. The same deep, slow patience is available here, under you, in this moment. When the builders of Giza shaped the plateau, they were making a kind of promise to the future, perhaps without realizing it. By preparing the foundation carefully, they were saying, "This will last. This will endure. The weight we place here will be carried for a long, long time." And they were right. The pyramids still stand, and the ground beneath them still holds. So as we rest beside these ancient shapes in our imagination, and as we dip just below the surface to see the sleeping rock, we are reminded that there is a part of the world that moves very, very slowly, a part that is not hurried by deadlines or messages or alarms, a part that simply is. With each breath you take now, you might imagine a little of that slow time sinking into you. Inhale and picture drawing up a sense of deep calm from the ground. Exhale and let the day flow out of you, down through the mattress into that patient rock, where it can dissolve and scatter like dust in a desert wind. There is nothing you need to hold on to unless you want to, nothing you need to solve before sleep. The land beneath the sand does not ask the pyramids to justify themselves. It simply lets them rest. And in the same way, tonight, the world can let you rest too. If you are still awake, you might feel a small sense of familiarity, like returning to a quiet room where the lamp is already dimmed and the cushions remember the shape of your body. If you have just arrived, that is perfectly fine too. Either way, you are welcome here. This is still your soft corner of the night, where you do not have to be productive or alert or impressive. You only have to be. You might remember, if your mind has not drifted too far, that we were resting beside the pyramid, thinking about the land beneath them, the ancient stone that holds their weight. We imagined the Giza Plateau as a kind of stone bed, carved and prepared to cradle those mountains of blocks across thousands of years. If that picture has faded, there is no need to pull it back sharply. You can let it come and go, like a dream that hovers at the edge of sleep. As we continue, you might find your attention wandering away again and again. This is not a problem. You do not need to keep track of the story. You do not need to remember the order of events, or the names, or the dates. All of that can flow past like sand carried by the wind. Sometimes you will catch a grain here or there, a little fact or image that stays with you. The rest can simply slide away, leaving behind only a feeling of calm curiosity. You can take a quiet moment now to notice your body again. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. You do not need to change anything, just notice. The air comes in, the air goes out. Perhaps your breathing has slowed since you first started listening. Perhaps it has stayed the same. Either way is fine. If you like, you can imagine that with each exhale, your body becomes just a little heavier, sinking more deeply into the support beneath you, like a stone settling comfortably into soft sand. If there is a place that feels tight, maybe in your neck or your shoulders or in your belly, you can send a little kindness there in your imagination. Not trying to force it to relax, just acknowledging, yes, it is a little tense here, and that is understandable. The body holds many things. With the next breath out, you might imagine that tension loosening a fraction, like a knot that has been tugged gently and is willing to soften, but only a little at a time. That is enough. We have looked below the pyramids, into the bedrock, and the ancient seas turned to stone. Now we can turn our gaze slowly upward to the structures themselves, and think about how a mountain of stone like this is built. Not in sudden leaps, but in small steady steps, one block at a time. You can picture something simple and familiar, a handful of building blocks, the kind that children stack on a floor. Perhaps you remember doing this yourself or watching someone else carefully balance one block atop another. You start with a wide base and then add smaller layers, narrowing toward the top, until you have a little pyramid shape leaning on your carpet or table. It is a small act, but it contains the essence of something much larger. The pyramids of Egypt are built on that same simple idea. A broad base, then rows of stone blocks, each layer slightly smaller than the one below, until they meet at a point high in the air. Seen like this, they become less mysterious, more understandable. Just stones stacked with patience. The difference, of course, is scale. Instead of wooden blocks that fit in your hand, the stones used in the Great Pyramid weigh, on average, around a couple of tons each. Some are much heavier, and instead of a tower the height of your knee, the pyramid rises to the height of a tall building. It is easy to imagine this as a noisy, hurried process, but if you slow it down in your mind, it becomes something calmer. Picture the early morning on the plateau. The light is soft, the air still cool. Workers arrive in groups, their footsteps crunching on the ground, voices low. There are blocks of limestone cut from nearby quarries, set on sledges, ropes ready. The day's task is simple in concept. Move these stones from here to there, lift them a little higher, place them carefully into position, over and over, day after day. To cut the stones, the builders used tools that might seem modest to us now: copper chisels, stone hammers, wedges of wood. They did not have steel saws or powered machines. Instead, they relied on skill and repetition. A line would be marked on the surface of the rock. Then, along that line, workers would chip and chip, tiny pieces falling away until the block began to separate. In some places, they would drive wooden wedges into cracks and soak the wood, letting it expand and split the stone. It was slow, physical work, but not frantic. A rhythm developed, like a slow heartbeat, steady and predictable. Once a block was freed, it had to be moved. You can imagine it being set onto a wooden sledge, like a simple sled. A team of workers would take up the ropes, ready to pull. The ground might be prepared with tracks, or the path smoothed. Some researchers think that water was poured on the sand to make it firmer and reduce friction, so the sledge would slide more easily. You can picture someone walking ahead with a jar, sprinkling water, turning dry grains into a slightly darker, more cohesive strip of earth. Then the pulling begins, not in a sudden jerk, but in a coordinated, steady effort. The rope tightens, feet dig in. The sledge starts to move slowly, the sound of wood scraping against sand, perhaps accompanied by a low chant to keep everyone in time. There is effort here, yes, but also pattern. Everyone knows their role. They've done this many times. They will do it many times more. It is like rowing a boat or kneading dough. The muscles learn the motion and it becomes almost meditative. As the pyramid grows, the blocks have to be lifted higher. Scholars debate exactly how this was done, but many ideas involve ramps of earth or stone, gently sloping paths wrapping around the structure or leading straight up one side. In your mind, you can imagine a ramp expanding alongside the rising pyramid. A long, gradual incline rather than a steep cliff. The same sledges, the same ropes, the same sprinkling of water on the path, the same steady breathing of workers, the same quiet, coordinated strength. From a distance, the project might look enormous and overwhelming. Up close, each moment is just one more small task. Move this block here, place it carefully, adjust it, step back, check the alignment, then take a breath and begin again. This is how a mountain of stone is created, not by one grand gesture, but by countless small movements, repeated patiently. Inside the pyramid, the story is more intricate. From the outside, it looks like a solid shape, a continuous mass of stone. But within, there are hollow spaces, corridors and rooms. You might think of these inner structures as the pyramid's skeleton and heart. Without them, it would still be impressive, but with them, it becomes a palace of stone wrapped in a geometric shell. Imagine entering through a narrow opening and then moving into a sloping passage. The floor rises gently or descends. The walls close on either side, the ceiling low enough that you feel its presence above you. At first, the light is dim. The air is cool. As your eyes adjust in your imagination, you can see that these spaces are lined with carefully fitted blocks. Some walls seem almost seamless, the joints between stones so fine that you could barely slip a fingertip between them. In some pyramids, there are corridors that run upward, like long stone hallways. Others go downward, piercing the bedrock itself, leading to chambers carved beneath the base. In the Great Pyramid, for example, there are rooms at different levels, a subterranean chamber cut into the rock below, a lower unfinished-looking space. Higher up, more refined rooms with flat ceilings made of massive stone beams. These beams span the spaces like silent sleeping giants, resting across the gap, holding up the weight of stone above. You can think of these inner chambers as special rooms hidden within a vast solid mountain. Just as the bedrock beneath the pyramid supports it from below, These carefully arranged blocks support the spaces within. Engineers and architects have studied how the load of the pyramid is distributed, how the builders used relieving chambers and angled stones to divert weight away from the most fragile points. It is as if they were listening to the stone, understanding where it could bear pressure and where it needed help. Beneath all of this, as we mentioned before, the foundations and substructures tie the monument to the earth. Some pyramids have burial chambers cut directly into the bedrock below the base, forming a kind of underground anchor. A passage leads down from the exterior into the rock, then opens into a room where the sarcophagus might be placed. In these cases, the tomb is literally part of the earth, not just enclosed by blocks built on top. You can imagine the process of carving such a chamber. Workers descend into a shaft or a sloping tunnel, bringing with them simple lamps and tools. The rock around them is cool, solid. They mark the outline of the room, then begin to chip away, bit by bit, turning raw stone into straight walls and flat floors. The sound of each stroke is small, but over time the space opens up. In the end, the chamber is a quiet, enclosed world, surrounded on all sides by rock that has been there since long before humans, and will be there long after. Seen this way, the pyramid becomes a layered sanctuary. Above there is the desert air, the sunlight, the wide scale, then comes the visible structure of blocks stepped up toward the heavens. Inside, secret corridors and chambers, beneath the bedrock and any rooms carved into it, each level connected to the next, each part relying on the others. The builders were not only stacking stone, they were shaping the earth and filling it with carefully designed spaces, like a sculptor who moves between the outside and the inside of a piece, carving both the surface and the hidden cavities. There is also the question of alignment and orientation. The pyramids were not placed casually, facing in random directions. Many of them are aligned very closely with the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. Doing that with such precision, using the tools available at the time, required careful observation of the sky. The builders likely watched the stars, especially those that never set, circling high above the horizon. They used simple devices, like straight poles and sighting lines, to mark where true north lay, and then match the sides of the pyramids to those directions. When you think of this, you can imagine a quiet night, long before the construction began. A group of watchers standing on the plateau, their eyes turned upward. The air is still, the desert is dark. Above them, the stars slowly wheel across the sky, unhurried, patient. There might be quiet conversation or comfortable silence. They're looking for patterns, for points that do not move or that move in a regular way. They make notes in their own methods, perhaps marking the ground, perhaps aligning strings or staffs. In doing so, they connect the earth to the sky. They decide that this side of the future pyramid will face the north wind that won the rising sun. They anchor their monument not only in soil and stone, but in the great dome of the heavens. It is easy to imagine that this brought a sense of satisfaction, of harmony. The structure they were planning would be rooted in the bedrock below and aligned with the stars above, bridging the human world and the cosmic one. You might notice a similar longing in yourself at times, a wish to feel aligned, to feel that your life is pointing in some clear direction, connected to something larger. The pyramids remind us that such alignment is rarely perfect, and that it takes time and observation to even get close. But they also show how powerful it can feel to place something carefully, to say, yes, this belongs here, facing this way, supported by this ground. As the pyramid rose layer by layer, with its inner corridors and chambers taking shape, another, more intimate story was unfolding. For these were not just monumental sculptures, they were tombs, quiet rooms for the dead, designed to be both homes and gateways. You may have your own experiences with graves, cemeteries, memorials. Many cultures create special places to honor those who have died. Simple stones in a field, carved markers in a churchyard, and small shrines with photographs and candles. These places are often calm, hushed, set apart from the rush of daily life. We walk more slowly there. We speak more softly, not out of fear, but out of respect. In ancient Egypt, the pyramids were an expression of that same human impulse magnified into stone and geometry. They were built for pharaohs, who were seen as both rulers and divine figures, deeply connected to the gods and to the well-being of the land. To the people who built them, these tombs were not just containers for bodies. They were carefully prepared spaces where the pharaoh could continue a journey beyond death, supported by offerings, inscriptions, and rituals. At the heart of a pyramid, whether at the ground level or beneath it, lies the main burial chamber. You can imagine this room in your mind, a rectangular space, its walls made of stone blocks fitted together with care. The ceiling might be flat, formed by massive stone slabs, or slightly angled to help distribute the weight above. In the center, or pushed toward one end, stands the sarcophagus, a heavy stone box carved to contain the mummy of the king. Once, this room would have held more than just the sarcophagus. There might have been precious objects, statues, jars containing carefully preserved organs, perhaps pieces of furniture, jewelry, and symbolic items meant to be useful in the afterlife. Some would be practical, others more mystical in meaning. To the people who placed them there, these were necessary, not for the comfort of the living, but for the safe passage and continued existence of the dead. Today, when we imagine a burial chamber, we might picture it in the silence where the ancient rituals have ended and the visitors have gone. The air is still and cool, the light, if any, is faint, barely illuminating the shapes in the room. Dust lies softly on the floor. For long stretches of time, centuries perhaps, no human foot enters. The chamber simply exists, wrapped in layers of stone like the center of a nesting doll, protected by corridor after corridor, block after block. In some pyramids, as we mentioned earlier, there are subterranean chambers carved directly into the rock beneath the monument. The Great Pyramid, for instance, has a chamber underneath that looks rough and unfinished compared to the polished rooms above. You can imagine walking down a long, narrow passage, cut at a slope, feeling the floor gently tilt beneath your feet. The air cools as you go deeper. Finally, you enter a room hewn from the bedrock, its walls less even, as if the carving was begun with purpose and then, for some reason, left incomplete. Why would a chamber be left that way? Why would plans change? Archaeologists debate these questions, offering possibilities. Perhaps the original intention was to place the burial below, but then a decision was made to create a chamber higher up. Perhaps the design evolved over time. The exact answer may never be fully known. For us, in this quiet moment, it can simply be a reminder that even grand, carefully planned projects are full of revisions, adjustments, and abandoned ideas. Above and below these spaces, there are symbolic meanings layered into the stone. The ancient Egyptians had a rich and complex view of the afterlife. They believed that a person was made up of different parts: the body, the vital essence, the personality, the name. At death, these parts needed help to stay together or to reunite in the right places. The tomb played a vital role in that process. It was a place for the body to rest. Point of contact between the world of the living and the world beyond. Some elements of the tomb's design reflect these beliefs. Corridors might be aligned to allow shafts of sunlight or starlight to enter at certain times. Certain symbols and texts carved on walls or placed on objects were meant to guide and protect the soul. The placement of the burial chamber, whether above or below ground, could be connected to ideas about the journey into the earth, into the sky, or through the realm of the gods. All of this was layered onto the practical concerns of stone and structure, creating a blend of engineering and spirituality. When you think about it, this is not so different from how we often treat special places in our own lives. A room can be just a room, with walls and a roof. But if you fill it with meaningful objects, or with pictures of people you love, with items that remind you of important moments, that room becomes something more, a reflection of who you are, a shelter for your memories. The burial chambers beneath the pyramids were like that too, but intended to serve someone who had already left this life. The idea of secret or hidden rooms can sometimes sound ominous, especially in stories. But here, the hiddenness is more about privacy and reverence than danger. These were not spaces meant for casual visitors. They were intended to remain closed, quiet, undisturbed. In many cases, they did remain that way for a very long time. Even when later explorers and archaeologists began to enter these chambers again, they often did so carefully, step by slow step, aware that they were intruding into places that had been sealed for centuries. The air might have been stale, the dust thick, the silence profound. In those moments, the rooms beneath the pyramids were not just archaeological sites. They were time capsules, holding on to human hopes and beliefs long after those who built them had turned to dust. As you lie here, listening in the dark, you might consider the quiet spaces inside yourself. Thoughts and feelings that you do not show to everyone. Memories that feel like small hidden rooms, visited only when you're alone. There is nothing wrong with having such inner chambers. In fact, they are part of being human. Just as the pyramids have corridors and rooms that are not visible from the outside, you too have depths that others do not see. Tonight, though, you do not need to open any of those inner doors if you do not want to. You do not need to explore your own hidden places. You're allowed simply to rest in the outer shell, the feeling of your body supported by the bed, the sound of your breath, the gentle murmur of words about stone and time. If other thoughts come, you can let them pass through, like visitors walking quietly down a hallway and then leaving again. In the darkness beneath the pyramids, in those buried chambers, there is a sense of stillness that is almost absolute. No wind, no weather, no sunlight, just rock and silence. And yet even there, time is moving. Dust settles. Minerals shift. The tiniest changes occur over years and years. It is a slow, patient kind of change, almost invisible but always present. In your own rest tonight, something similar may happen. You might feel as if you're doing nothing, simply lying still, but your body is quietly repairing itself. Your mind is processing the day in ways you do not see. Sleep, when it comes, will deepen that process, gently rearranging, restoring, organizing. It is a soft kind of work, carried out in silence, beneath the surface of your awareness, like archaeological layers being laid down one by one. So, as we leave for now these underground chambers and the long stone corridors that lead to them, you can carry with you a simple idea that there is a place at the center of things, whether in a pyramid or in a person, where stillness is possible. A place wrapped in layers of proaction, supported by deep foundations aligned with something larger. You do not have to understand it fully. You just have to know that it exists and that you are allowed to rest near it, in the soft darkness, for as long as you need. If you're still awake, you might recognize the feeling of arriving in a story that has already wrapped itself gently around you. If you have drifted in and out, or if this is the first part you're hearing, that is completely all right. You do not have to remember where we left off or what was said before. The pyramids, the desert, the ancient stone beneath them will welcome you in at any point. The way the night sky welcomes you when you happen to look up. You are still lying there, supported by your bed, by your pillow, by whatever soft things you have gathered around you. Take a moment to notice the weight of your body, the way your back rests, the way your head is cradled, the way your arms and legs are arranged. There is nothing to fix, nothing to correct. Just a quiet acknowledgement. This is how you are right now. If you like, you can bring a little awareness back to your breathing. Not to control it, but simply to watch it. Air moves in, air moves out in its own rhythm. Perhaps you invite it to slow down again, just a little. A comfortable, unforced slowing. Maybe in for a gentle count of 3 and out for 4. Or maybe you just imagine each breath as a small wave, lifting and falling without effort. The day that came before this moment is already beginning to soften at the edges. The conversations, the tasks, the worries, all of them can drift a little further away, like footprints in sand slowly smoothed by a breeze. You do not need to carry them into the deep part of the night. They will be there, in some form, when you return to tomorrow. For now, we are walking quietly in another time and place, where our only task is to look and to listen and to rest. We have stood in our imagination at the base of a pyramid. We have thought about the rock beneath it, the long-gone seas that became stone, the builders who shaped the plateau, the careful stacking of blocks, the cool chambers hidden inside. We have touched lightly on the tomb at the centre, the burial chamber where a pharaoh was laid to rest. Now we turn our attention outward a little, away from kings and sacred rooms, and toward the many human beings whose lives unfolded in the shadow of these great structures. When we hear about pyramids, we often think about rulers and gods, about golden masks and carved sarcophagi. But these monuments were not built by a single person. They rose stone by stone because thousands of people worked together, day after day, year after year. In the quiet distance beyond the pyramid itself, there was another world of kitchens and sleeping spaces, laughter and fatigue, injuries and care. Imagine yourself walking away from the base of the pyramid now, turning your back on the sloping sides of stone and moving toward a lower ridge of land nearby. The desert here is not empty. As your eyes adjust and your mind fills in the past, you begin to see outlines of streets, low walls, foundation lines etched into the ground. This is where the workers once lived, a town that grew up beside the pyramid project, like a camp that stayed long enough to become a community. You can picture simple houses made from mud brick, small rooms with flat roofs, clustered together, narrow alleyways between them. Perhaps a central space where people gathered. Around you, in your imagination, it is late afternoon or early evening. The day's work at the pyramid is done and the workers are returning home. Their steps are slower now, their shoulders tired, but there is a sense of routine in their movements, the comfort of familiar walls and familiar faces. The air is full of homely smells. There is the scent of bread baking in ovens, warm and slightly smoky, a smell that has followed humanity through so many ages. There might be the tang of beer brewing, yeast and grain, bubbles rising in clay jars. Archaeologists have found evidence of large bakeries and breweries near the pyramids, places where enormous quantities of bread and beer were produced to feed the workers. It is easy, in this quiet moment, to imagine the glow of ovens, the shuffle of feet, the murmur of conversation as loaves are pulled from the heat and shared. Inside the houses, families or groups of workers sit together. They talk about the day. Maybe they compare tasks, maybe they joke, Maybe they sit in companionable silence, just enjoying the feeling of having stopped. Children, if there are any, might play at stacking small stones, echoing the great project in miniature. Oil lamps cast soft, flickering light on walls plastered in pale colours. Outside, the sky darkens, and the massive outline of the pyramid becomes a quiet presence in the distance, like a mountain that watches over the town. There is something comforting about imagining this. It reminds us that even the most impressive monuments are made up of ordinary days, of people who woke up, put on their clothes, ate breakfast, walked to work, people who got tired and hungry, people who had friendships, rivalries, hopes and worries. The pyramids are not just symbols of kings, they are also the accumulated weight of many small gestures, a block nudged into place, a cut made in stone, a loaf carried from oven to table. Near the worker village there are other wells of quiet, other spaces meant for rest, but of a different kind. Archaeologists have uncovered cemeteries where some of these workers were buried. These are not grand tombs like the pyramid itself, but simpler graves. Shafts dug into the ground, modest structures of stone or brick, the remains of people who spent their lives in the service of this colossal project. You can imagine walking among these graves at dusk when the light is low and gentle. There might be small markers, fragments of stone that once bore names and titles. Perhaps some graves held simple offerings, tokens of affection and respect. A piece of pottery, a bead, an amulet. These are not the treasures that fill museum displays, but they are treasures of another kind, traces of care, gestures of love or duty from those left behind. One of the quietly striking things that researchers have noticed is the evidence of care in the bones of some of these workers. Healed injuries that would have required someone to help them, to tend to them over a period of time. Signs that they were not simply discarded when they were hurt, but treated and allowed to heal. That suggests community. It suggests that, as hard as the work might have been, there were hands willing to support those who needed help. Thinking about this can be softly reassuring. Even in a place defined in our minds by kings and monumental stone, there were ordinary acts of kindness, a bandage wrapped around a wound, food brought to someone who could not stand, a neighbour checking in on another after a long day. These small gentle actions leave marks not only in memory, but sometimes in the very bones that archaeologists study. Science in this case becomes a way of noticing kindness across thousands of years. Scattered around the village and the cemetery, the ground holds countless fragments, pottery sherds, broken tools, bits of animal bone from meals long past. To a hurried observer, they might look like nothing more than debris, but to a careful eye, they are like the punctuation marks of daily life. There is a certain type of jar that tells us what people drank, a particular kind of bread mould that hints at what they ate, ashes that say where fires once burned. Imagine crouching down and picking up a piece of pottery in your hand. It is only a fragment, the edge of a bowl perhaps, its surface worn and faded. Yet it once rested on someone's table. It might have held porridge or stew. It may have been washed and used many times, until a small accident broke it. The person who owned it might have sighed, swept it up, thrown it away. They had no idea that someday someone else would pick up a fragment and wonder about their life. In this way, the soil around the pyramids holds a quiet archive of ordinary existence. The village, the graves, the tools and dishes, all of them are part of the silent secrets beneath and beside the pyramids. Secrets not of conspiracies, but of routines and relationships. When scientists study these things, they are listening for the soft voices of the past. Voices that say in their own way, "We were here, we worked, we loved, we rested." Now, In your imagination, you slowly walk back toward the pyramid itself. The great slope of stone rises ahead of you, its sides faintly outlined against the starlit sky. You have seen the village and the graves. You have passed through the world of the living who built and maintained this place. As you draw nearer, you notice something else around the base of the pyramid. Shallow depressions, long, narrow pits cut into the rock, openings that lead downward. We often place important things in hidden or protected places. You might tuck a cherished letter into a drawer or store family objects in a box under a bed, or keep certain belongings in a basement, where they are safer from everyday accidents. The ancient Egyptians did something similar. Around and beneath some pyramids, they created special pits and shafts where they placed items of great symbolic importance. One of the most evocative of these are the boat pits. Imagine looking down into a long rectangular trench cut into the rock, its sides straight and smooth. At first it might look empty, but in some of these pits, archaeologists have found wooden boats, dismantled and carefully packed away, or the traces of boats that once lay there. These were not ordinary river craft, meant for daily ferrying of goods or people. They seem to have had a more symbolic role, perhaps representing the pharaoh's journey through the sky with the sun god, or his travel into the afterlife. Picture such a boat once assembled and afloat on the Nile. The water is calm. The vessel glides along, its wooden planks creaking softly, its prow cutting gently through the current. The sky above is bright and open. Now imagine that same boat, taken apart and tucked into a pit near the pyramid, piece by carefully numbered piece like a delicate puzzle. Wooden timbers lying quietly in the dark, enclosed by rock and sand. For centuries they waited there, untouched, like a dream put away in a box. When modern archaeologists uncovered these boats and reconstructed them, it was as if they had unfolded a thought that had been kept folded for thousands of years. The boats, once more assembled, looked ready to glide again, though this time not on water, but through the minds of those who saw them. You can see in your imagination one of these boats floating not on the Nile, but on a calm, black river of sky, its silhouette passing between the stars, carrying a silent passenger on a journey that never truly ends. Nearby there are other openings that lead inward, narrow shafts, some at angles, some nearly vertical, cut with care into the stone. Many are small, too small for a person to walk through comfortably. Their exact purpose is still a subject of discussion. Some may have been symbolic. Some may have acted as air channels or pathways for smoke or lines connecting certain points in the tomb to specific stars or parts of the sky. When we picture these shafts, it can be tempting to imagine them as creepy tunnels. But in this gentle exploration, we can think of them differently. Imagine them as thin, straw-like passages through the stone, like the hollow stems of plants through which water rises, or like narrow beams of invisible light that connect inner rooms to outer space. The stone around them is thick and solid. The shafts themselves are simply slender lines drawn through that solidity, markers of intention. Modern researchers have used small robots and cameras to explore some of these shafts. The devices move carefully, inch by inch, their lights illuminating stone that has not seen light since it was first carved. Sometimes they find small doors or blocks closing off the passage, tiny stone gates with copper fittings. These too are part of the pyramid's secrets. Not sinister secrets, but details of design whose meanings we are still trying to understand. Further away from Giza, at sites like Saqqara and Dasha, there are pyramids with even more complex underground systems. Imagine the ground beneath your feet honeycombed with corridors and rooms, carved like a multi-level maze into the bedrock. Long passageways that twist and turn, sometimes dropping down, sometimes rising. chambers with pillars and alcoves, side rooms that branch off and end in silence. In our imaginations, we can walk through these spaces as if in slow motion. The air is cool and slightly dusty. The sound of our footsteps echoes faintly, then falls away. Light from a torch or lamp flickers over carved walls, over unfinished surfaces, over floors worn smooth by time, or left rough where work stopped. At each corner there is another decision, another passage. Yet in this gentle exploration there is no hurry, no danger, only curiosity. Archaeologists who map these underground complexes must be both adventurous and careful. They measure, draw, scan, photograph. They note where the rock changes, where a corridor might have been blocked deliberately, where fragments of pottery or other objects lie. Sometimes they find things expected, a burial chamber, a sarcophagus, carved inscriptions. Sometimes they find surprises, a hidden room, a shaft that leads deeper than they thought, a pattern that suggests a different function. For us, lying here in the dark, these labyrinths beneath the pyramids and nearby sites can be transformed into something soothing. You can imagine them as the inner architecture of a dream, a place where you wander from one quiet space to another, never lost, always gently guided by your own curiosity. Each chamber is like a thought, each corridor a transition between ideas. As you drift from one to another, you are free to pause or move on, to notice or to let things blur. It is important to remember that even now, not everything beneath the pyramids has been fully explained. Some shafts end in small doors whose purpose is unclear, some unfinished chambers invite questions. Why did the builders stop here and not there? Why did they set this passage only to block it later? Why does this part of the plan differ from another? Other than feeling unsettling, this uncertainty can be comforting. It means that the past still has mysteries, gentle puzzles that do not demand urgent answers. Science continues to work on them slowly, patiently. New techniques, new discoveries, new interpretations arise, but there is no requirement for you lying here to solve anything. You're allowed to sit at the edge of the unknown and simply say, "How interesting," and then let the question drift away like smoke. We often feel in our own lives that we must have everything figured out, that every passage in our personal labyrinth must be mapped, that every hidden chamber in our hearts must be labelled and understood. The pyramids remind us that it is all right to have places that are still in shadow, rooms that are not yet explored, shafts whose purposes we do not fully understand. They can exist quietly, without pressing for explanation, while the rest of our structure stands firm. As you breathe now, you might imagine that your mind is like one of these ancient complexes. Some parts are bright and busy, full of recent activity. Others are cooler, quieter, rarely visited. You do not have to explore them all tonight. You do not have to open every door. Instead, you can let your attention rest in a simple, spacious chamber, somewhere at the center of things. Perhaps it has smooth walls and a flat floor. Perhaps it is lit by a soft, invisible glow. There is nothing there but you and the awareness of your own breath. Above you, beyond layers of imagined stone and sand, the desert night stretches out under the stars. The pyramid rises, its sides dark but steady. The worker village lies silent, its ovens cool. The boat pits and shafts wait in their own quiet. Everything is held together by the same patient earth, the same slow-moving time. In the more recent past, human beings have returned to those places, curious about what lies above and below, inside and out. They have brought tools and notebooks, cameras and scanners, questions and hypotheses. In a way, they are like guests arriving long after a ceremony has ended, stepping carefully into a hall that still remembers the echoes of voices and footsteps from a distant age. You can picture an archaeologist standing on the Giza plateau at dawn. The sky is pale, the air cool, The pyramid looms beside them, familiar yet always astonishing. They hold a notebook or a tablet or a camera. They look out over the site, deciding where to dig or where to scan, where to focus their attention. They know that beneath the surface there are layers of history waiting to be uncovered. But they also know that those layers must be approached with care, with respect, and with patience. The image of such a person standing quietly and thinking is a good place for us to pause, not on a cliffhanger, not in suspense, but in a moment of calm intention. The work of understanding the pyramids and their buried secrets goes on slowly, like the gradual brightening of the sky before sunrise. You, meanwhile, can continue to lie here, breathing, letting your thoughts move or rest as they wish, supported by your own foundations, by your own patient bedrock, as the night goes on. If you are still awake, you might recognize this voice like a familiar lamp in a quiet room, glowing softly in a corner of your mind. If you drifted away before, or if your thoughts wandered off and are only now returning, that is completely okay. You're not late. You've not missed anything that you need. This is not a story you have to follow closely from beginning to end. It is more like walking in circles on soft sand, seeing the same shapes from slightly different angles, and letting that gentle repetition soothe you. Take a moment to arrive again in your body. Feel the way you are resting, the particular arrangement of your arms and legs, the warmth or coolness of the air around you. Notice how the sheet or blanket touches your skin. There is no one correct posture here. There is only the position that feels the least demanding, the most forgiving right now. If you want to move, you can. If you prefer to stay still, that is fine too. Your breath is still with you, a quiet companion. You can pay attention to it for a few moments, as if you were watching a tide roll in and out at the edge of a calm sea. The inhale arrives, bringing a slight expansion of your chest or belly. The exhale leaves, like a wave sliding back over smooth sand, leaving it a little flatter, a little more peaceful. If it feels comfortable, you can lengthen the out-breath just slightly, as though you are sighing out the remnants of the day, sending them away with kindness. In your mind's eye, we are still near the pyramids. The desert night is cool and spacious, stone and sand sleep under the stars. Earlier we imagined the land beneath the pyramids, the ancient seas turned to rock. We walked through the silent corridors inside, visited the burial chamber, and wandered through the worker village nearby with its ovens, its small homes, its quiet graves. We noticed the boat pits and the narrow shafts, the underground networks beneath other pyramids. Now you can picture another figure on this landscape, a person standing at the edge of the pyramid site, perhaps at dawn or in the gentle light of late afternoon. They are an archaeologist, or part of an archaeological team. Maybe they're wearing a wide-brimmed hat to shade their face, or maybe they stand bareheaded, letting the early sun or cool breeze touch their skin. In their hands there is no treasure chest, no gleaming jewel. Instead, perhaps they hold a notebook, a camera, a trowel, a brush. The popular image of archaeology is often dramatic, people discovering golden masks or breaking into sealed tombs. But in reality, much of this work is slow and careful, like meditation. The ground is approached with respect. Each layer of soil and sand is peeled back gently, a few centimeters at a time. Brushes whisk away dust. Small tools loosen dirt around fragile objects. Notes are taken. Measurements are recorded. Photographs are made to capture each stage. You can imagine this person kneeling beside a trench, their knees perhaps cushioned by a folded cloth, their hands moving with deliberate slowness. A tiny fragment of pottery emerges, still half buried. Instead of grabbing it, they clear the edge, trace its outline with their eyes, note its position. They are not just looking at the object, but at the context around it. where it lies, what is above it, what is below. The Earth is not just dirt here. It is a layered record, and each layer must be read in order. Long before this kind of careful scientific approach was common, other visitors came to the pyramids. Some of the earliest explorers were driven by curiosity, or by a desire for fame, or by the simple wish to see what lay inside. They sometimes forced their way in through rubble and blocked passages, chiseling new openings where they could not find old ones. By candlelight or torchlight, they crawled through cramped tunnels, drawing rough maps, writing descriptions, making this their first attempts to understand the internal layout of these monuments. You can picture one of those early explorers centuries ago, squeezing through a narrow passage, the flickering flame bringing walls into view and then throwing them back into darkness. The air is dusty and still. Perhaps they cough softly, pause, and then continue. Their maps, made with ink on paper that has long since yellowed, were not perfect. They misunderstood some things. They missed others. But they were the first steps in our long, patient attempt to learn what lies within and beneath these structures. Over time, the methods improved. Archaeology grew into a discipline that is less about prying treasures loose and more about listening carefully to what the ground, the stone, and the objects themselves have to say. Today, teams approach the pyramids with a toolkit that uses both hands and technology. They still dig, still brush, still draw, but they also scan and map in a way that would have seemed like gentle magic to those earlier explorers. Imagine one of these modern techniques, ground-penetrating radar. It is, in simple terms, a way of sending pulses into the ground and listening for the echoes. A device is moved slowly over the surface, tracing careful paths. Somewhere beneath, the pulse travels through layers of earth and stone. When it hits something different, a void, a denser patch of rock, a buried wall, it reflects back in a slightly altered way. Computers turn these faint, invisible echoes into images, bands and shapes that hint at chambers or tunnels or changes in the ground. It is like whispering to the earth and listening for how it answers. The archaeologists read those answers in wavy lines and coloured bands on a screen, making educated guesses about what they mean. Sometimes they see the outline of something intriguing and decide where to dig more deeply. Sometimes they see only the reassurance that the ground is solid and undisturbed. Both are valuable. Both help build a more complete picture. Another modern tool used in some projects relies on tiny particles that are always moving through the universe, even as you lie here in the dark. Cosmic rays. These particles, called muons, pass through stone and air and us, mostly without interacting. But very thick stone blocks, more of them. By placing sensitive detectors in and around a pyramid, scientists can measure how many of these particles pass through different regions. Where fewer muons arrive, there may be more solid stone. Where more arrive, there may be a hidden void, a chamber, a passage no one knew about. You do not need to remember the names or the technical details. You can simply imagine this as another way of gently seeing through stone without breaking it. As if the pyramid itself were being outlined by invisible rain, and by watching the pattern of droplets that make it through, you could guess where open spaces might be. It is a kind of non-invasive listening, a quiet conversation between the monument and the people who study it. Sometimes the finds that emerge from these efforts are big and dramatic, a previously unknown chamber, a large statue, a new boat pit, but often they are small, a fragment of pigment that reveals the original colour of a wall, a chip of stone that shows which tools were used, a piece of a wooden beam that can be dated, narrowing down the timeline of construction. Imagine an archaeologist holding a tiny piece of painted plaster in their palm. At first glance, it might look like any other scrap, But under a lens, they can see a faint band of red or blue or black. That line of colour, once part of a larger image, tells them that this place was not always bare stone. It was once vivid with painted scenes or symbols, even if the full picture cannot be reconstructed. This little fragment whispers that the people who built and used these spaces valued decoration, symbolism and beauty. Or imagine a small worn tool, perhaps a chisel, or a polished stone used to smooth surfaces. Its handle bears the mark of fingers long gone. Its blade is dulled by repeated use. By examining it, scientists can tell what kind of stone it worked on, how it was made, when it was last sharpened. From such details they learn not only about the final structure, but about the process, about the daily routines of those who shape the stone. Taken together, these small finds accumulate into stories. The more we discover, the more detailed the stories become, how the work was organised, where the supplies came from, how the workers were fed and housed, what changes were made to a pyramid as it was being built, and why. There are still gaps, of course, but each new fragment is like another star appearing in the sky, adding to the constellations we use to navigate the past. The work continues. Year after year, teams return to these sites with fresh questions, new tools and updated methods. There are seasons of digging, followed by seasons of analysis and writing and sharing. Some projects take decades. Knowledge grows not in sudden flashes, but like a sunrise, first a faint glow, then slow brightening, then more details becoming visible. There are always areas still in shadow, and that is all right. As you rest and listen, it might be soothing to think of this steady, ongoing effort. Human beings across generations quietly trying to understand something beautiful and complex. There is no rush. The pyramids have already waited for thousands of years. They can wait a little longer for us to figure out their details, and we in turn do not have to rush to understand everything in our own lives either. We can allow some of our questions to remain open, to evolve slowly, to be revisited when the time feels right. The pyramids and the land beneath them invite us to think about time in a different way. When you look at them, or picture them now in your imagination, you see evidence of human effort from thousands of years ago. And beneath them, in the bedrock, you have the story of ancient oceans from millions of years before that. Layers of time tucked into each other, like nesting boxes, like chambers within chambers. Compared to those spans of time, a single day, your day, is incredibly small. All the messages, plans, worries, and tasks of the last few hours are like a single grain of sand in a vast desert of years. That does not mean they are unimportant. They matter to you, and that matters. But it can be calming to zoom out for a moment, to imagine your concerns resting on a background of deep, quiet time that stretches far beyond them. What happens to your worry when you place it gently at the foot of a pyramid that has been standing for 40 centuries? What happens to a racing thought when you imagine it sitting on a shelf carved into rock that once lay beneath an ancient sea? Often it starts to soften. It may still be there, but it no longer fills the whole frame. It becomes one part of a much larger picture. You might picture your worries as ripples on the surface of a calm lake. The pyramids and the bedrock beneath them are like the depths of that lake, steady, almost motionless. The ripples come and go quickly, disturbed by breezes and stones. The depths change slowly, almost imperceptibly. When you are caught in the ripples, everything feels urgent. But if you can let your awareness sink a little deeper into that slower layer, there is more room to breathe. The pyramids were built by human hands, guided by human hearts and minds. Every block, every corridor, every carved surface was made by someone. There were architects and engineers, scribes and overseers, skilled artisans, strong labourers, cooks, brewers, water carriers, and countless others. Their names are mostly lost, yet their work endures. Think of the hands that smoothed a stone block so it would fit snugly against its neighbour. The hands that carried baskets of rubble away. The hands that kneaded dough in the workers' village. The hands that stitched clothing or tended fires or wrapped bandages. Each pair of hands contributed something small. No single person lifted the pyramid into being. It grew out of countless small actions, repeated and combined. In your own life, you may sometimes feel that what you do is too small to matter, that your days are filled with tiny, trivial tasks. Making meals, sending messages, tending to others, ticking boxes on lists. But from another perspective, these are your building blocks. Over time, they form structures, relationships, skills, memories, a body of work, a sense of self. Just as the pyramid builders did not have a bird's eye view of the finished monument while they were placing the lower stones, you do not always see the full pattern of what you're building while you're in the middle of it. You only see one block at a time, one day at a time. It can be comforting to remember that this is how it is for everyone, that the great shapes of our lives only become clear when we step back, or when enough time has passed. The hidden spaces beneath the pyramids also echo patterns found throughout the natural world. If you think of a tree, you see its trunk and branches reaching upward, leaves catching the light. But beneath the surface of the soil, there is another world. Roots spreading out, seeking water and nutrients, anchoring the tree against wind and weather. The visible part depends on the hidden part. Similarly, animals live in burrows beneath fields, in nests tucked under rocks, in caves in the sides of hills. Rivers carve unseen channels underground, flowing through limestone to create networks of caverns. Even the modest anthill has a busy, layered interior, all hidden from view unless you look closely. Above ground, there might be a small mound, a simple opening. Below ground, there are rooms for nurseries, for food storage, for rest. The pyramids share this pattern. Above, the sharp lines and sunlight. Below, the chambers and passages, the carefully carved spaces that most people would never see. Both levels matter. Both tell part of the story. You too have parts of yourself that are easy to see, your actions, your words, your visible habits. And you have parts that are hidden, your private thoughts, your memories, your quiet preferences and fears. These inner layers are not flaws to be exposed and fixed. They are like the roots of a tree or the chambers within a pyramid, integral, protective, sometimes mysterious. Beyond the Earth, the universe seems to love hidden layers. Many planets are thought to have solid crusts above molten interiors. Some moons may have icy shells covering deep oceans of liquid water never touched by sunlight. Stars have inner cores and outer envelopes. Galaxies swirl with visible matter while being shaped by invisible forces we cannot yet fully see. When astronomers study these things, they often work indirectly, much like archaeologists. They cannot travel to the center of a planet or the heart of a star, just as we cannot easily walk through all the chambers beneath the pyramids. Instead, they use faint hints, the way light bends, the way objects move, the subtle changes in orbits and spectra. From these clues, they infer what lies beneath, what lies within. You might imagine the universe as another kind of pyramid, though not with straight sides, but with layers of understanding. At the top layer is what we see with our eyes, the stars at night, the moon, the sun, a few planets. Beneath that are layers we learn about through telescopes, distant galaxies, nebulae, faint clusters. Beneath that are layers of theory, dark matter, dark energy, phenomena inferred, but not directly seen. It is a gentle reminder that not all truths are on the surface, and that it is all right for some things to remain partially mysterious. Even in the very ordinary facts about the pyramids, there are moments of soft awe. Consider the sheer weight of some of the large stones placed above certain chambers. Each one can weigh as much as several cars, yet they were lifted and set into position with systems of ramps, ropes, and human strength. In the Great Pyramid, millions of blocks were arranged with such care that the structure has survived earthquakes, storms, and the passage of thousands of years. Think about the alignment again. Sides facing almost exactly north, south, east, and west. This was achieved not with digital compasses or satellite data, but with careful observation of the sky. People stood under the same stars you see now, though the constellations have shifted slightly, and traced their paths, noting how they crossed the horizon, where they rose and set. From those patterns, they drew lines on the ground. When you think of these things, you do not need to feel a sharp burst of astonishment. You can let it arrive as a soft, lingering wow that stretches out quietly, like the feeling you get when you stand in a large, silent room and notice how the sound of your footsteps slowly fades. It is possible to be impressed without being jolted awake. Perhaps you'd imagine a single block being swung gently into place on the side of the pyramid, guided by a small team of workers. They call out to each other, adjust the ropes, nudge the stone a little this way, a little that way. Then at last it settles with a faint thud, fitting against its neighbours. A tiny success, one of many. They may wipe sweat from their foreheads, share a few words, and then move on to the next one. They do not know that thousands of years later, someone lying in bed far away will be thinking about their work. But here you are. In the same way, some of your own small efforts may mean more than you realize. A kind word spoken at the right moment. A mundane task done consistently, a quiet decision to rest instead of pushing yourself past your limits. These things might not feel grand, but they are part of the structure you are building, part of the world you are supporting in your own way. Finally, as we rest in this place between sand and stars, between stone and story, we might turn gently inward. The hidden spaces beneath the pyramids can be a mirror for the hidden spaces within you, the rooms where you keep your most important memories, the corridors of thought you walk when you are alone, the corners where worries pile up, and the quiet alcoves where comfort and hope live. Sometimes when we are tired, we feel pressure to explore all of that at once, to sort through every box, open every door, fix every broken object inside. But you do not have to do that tonight. Tonight, you can imagine that your inner world is like a carefully planned complex of chambers. Some are lit and in use, others are dark and resting. There are places where you do your daily thinking, and places where deeper feelings lie quietly. You're allowed to leave some rooms unopened for now. You're allowed to let your inner archaeologist work slowly, over months and years, gently uncovering what needs to be seen and leaving the rest in peace until the time is right. Just as scientists keep returning to the pyramids season after season, you can return to yourself with patience instead of urgency. Right now you can choose one simple, comfortable inner space to sit in. Perhaps it is a small stone-like room in your imagination, with smooth walls and a floor you can lie on. There is a faint, warm light, just enough to see by, but not enough to strain your eyes. Outside this room there may be more corridors, more stories, more questions, but inside there is just quiet. Your breath slow and steady, your body supported and still. Above this imagined room in the world of pyramids and desert and stars, the night continues. The wind brushes softly against the stone. The shapes of the pyramid stand firm against the sky. Deep below, the bedrock rests, unchanged by our thoughts. And here in your own bed you rest too, held by your pillow and your blankets, held by the quiet of this moment, held by the gentle knowledge that you do not have to do anything more right now than simply be here, breathing, while the ancient world and your own inner world both keep their silent secrets peacefully for another night. If you are still awake, you might feel as though you keep returning to the same quiet place by a different path. Perhaps you remember fragments of what came before, the desert night, the pyramids rising from the sand, the hidden chambers beneath them, the workers' village, the slow, patient work of archaeologists. Or perhaps all of that has blurred into a soft, hazy impression, more feeling than memory. Either way is perfectly all right. You do not have to hold on to any of it. You do not have to replay it or organize it. You do not have to catch up. These words are like faint footprints on a dune. The wind of sleep can blow over them at any time, smoothing them away, and the desert of your mind will still be beautiful. For a moment, let your awareness return to your body. Notice where you are resting. Feel the shape of the pillow beneath your head, the way your neck is supported, the way your shoulders meet the bed. If you want to make a small adjustment, you can do that now, as if you were gently nudging a stone into a more comfortable place in a wall. Then let yourself be still again. Bring your attention to your breath. You do not have to breathe deeply unless that feels good. Just notice the quiet, natural rise and fall. Air slips in, air slips out. If it feels comfortable, you might allow your exhale to lengthen a little, as though each outward breath were a slow release, a quiet setting down of something heavy that you no longer need to carry into the night. In your imagination, the pyramids are still there. The night is still spread out above them, wide and gentle and full of stars. The desert around them is cool. The stone blocks are resting on the bedrock just as you are resting on your mattress. Deep below there are layers of rock, traces of ancient seas. Inside there are corridors and chambers where the air is still and the darkness is complete. Around them there are memories of workers and villages and broken pottery, and the quiet footsteps of archaeologists moving carefully over the ground. Now we can let the scene open even wider. The pyramids are not just structures of stone, they are markers of time. They remind us that the earth has a long memory. Think of how much has changed since they were built. Languages have shifted, kingdoms have risen and fallen, entire ways of life have come and gone, yet those shapes of stone remain, like patient witnesses. Your own life fits into this vast timeline as a small, bright thread. The worries that sometimes feel overwhelming are like tiny ripples on a huge ocean of time. They matter, but they are not everything. When they loom large, it can help to imagine setting them down at the base of a pyramid in your mind. See them there like small pebbles resting on ancient stone. The stone has seen so many days, so many worries, and has outlasted them all. It does not judge your concerns. It simply provides a backdrop that makes them feel a little less absolute, a little lighter. You might ask yourself softly, what does it feel like to measure my day against thousands of years? Does it make my problems vanish? Not entirely, but it can soften their edges. It can remind you that it is all right for some things to remain unfinished at the end of the day. The builders of the pyramids did not complete their work in a single season. The earth did not lay down its layers of rock in a single year. It all took time. There is comfort in this slowness. The pyramids invite you to step out of the rushing current of hours and minutes and into a slower stream, where changes are measured in centuries or even in geological ages. When you rest in that slower stream, your breath can relax, your shoulders can drop, you no longer have to keep up with the clock. The night becomes wide enough to hold you. Think again of the people who built and studied these structures, the workers hauling stones, the artisans smoothing surfaces, the supervisors planning, the cooks baking bread, the archaeologists brushing dust from pottery fragments, the scientists reading faint traces on a scanner. None of them completed the story alone. Each person added something small, a block placed, a note written, a measurement taken, a meal prepared. In your own life, there are moments like that. Small things that do not seem important at the time. A message that comforts a friend. A routine task that keeps your home running. A small act of kindness to yourself, like lying down to rest when you're tired. These are not grand monuments, but they are the stones of your own invisible pyramid, the foundation of your days. Perhaps you think of a time you helped someone and it felt ordinary, maybe even unnoticed, or a time when someone helped you in a small, quiet way that meant more than they realized. These are the human equivalents of the healed bones found near the pyramids, the evidence that even in the midst of hard work and long projects, people cared for each other. It is all right if you do not feel particularly strong or impressive right now. You may simply feel exhausted. But even choosing to rest, to listen, to give your body and mind a chance to recover is its own kind of gentle wisdom. The builders of the pyramids did not work all day and all night without stopping. There were pauses, evenings, times to eat and sleep. Your rest is as necessary to your life as those pauses were to theirs. If you turn your attention from the pyramids for a moment to the natural world more broadly, you will see that hidden spaces are everywhere. Remember the tree with its trunk and branches and leaves stretching up toward the light. Beneath the soil unseen, its roots spread out like an underground mirror of what is above. They seek water. They anchor the tree against wind and storm. Without those roots, the visible part could not survive. Or think of a hillside meadow. On the surface, grass, flowers, insects, small animals moving through the light. Beneath there may be burrows where creatures sleep, tunnels where they store food, chambers where they raise their young. The surface is lively and bright. The underground is dark and sheltered. Both are necessary. Caves, too, lie hidden in mountains and cliffs. From outside you see only a small opening, perhaps a dark crack in rock. Inside there may be vast chambers, glittering formations, underground rivers. These spaces are often cool and quiet, insulated from the changes of weather above. The pyramids, with their buried chambers and underground passages, fit into this pattern. They are like stone mountains with made caves inside. Above ground you see sharp edges, sunlit faces. Below you find the protected spaces where something important was kept. A body, a sarcophagus, offerings, symbols. In your imagination, these interior rooms can stand in for all the quiet, protected places in nature where life rests, waits, and transforms. Beyond our planet, the universe holds its own hidden layers. There are moons in our solar system that may have oceans buried beneath thick shells of ice. There are planets with atmospheres we cannot yet sample directly, where the surface remains a mystery. There are stars surrounded by clouds of dust and gas, hiding their delicate disks where new planets may be forming. Astronomers study these things through faint signals, tiny dips in a star's brightness, subtle shifts in the colour of light, slight changes in motion. From these hints, they infer the existence of hidden oceans, thick atmospheres, rings of debris. They never see them directly, but they know they're there. It is a cosmic echo of how archaeologists use radar, muons, and careful digging to uncover chambers beneath the pyramids. Even the fabric of the universe itself seems to contain unseen elements. We observe how galaxies move, how they cluster, how the universe expands. The patterns tell us that there must be something present that we cannot yet detect directly. A hidden mass, a hidden energy. Scientists call these dark matter and dark energy. The names themselves are a reminder that we are surrounded by mysteries and that it is normal to live among things we do not fully understand. In all of these examples, from roots to caves to cosmic structures, there is a common thread. What you see on the surface is only part of the story. There are layers, depths, secrets beneath. Not in a frightening way, but in a way that invites curiosity, patience, and humility. The pyramids offer their own soft wow moments when you think about them this way. The weight of the stones, the precision of the alignments, the endurance of the structure through weather and time, the fact that people planned and executed this project without the tools we now take for granted. You might picture again a single massive stone beam being placed above a chamber, carefully positioned so that the weight of the blocks above will be carried safely. You might recall the alignment with the cardinal directions achieved through watching stars. You might think of the bedrock below, once an ocean floor, now supporting a monument to human imagination and effort. Allow these thoughts to rise in you like a quiet feeling of wonder, but not a sharp or overwhelming one, more like the sense you get when you stand at the edge of a wide landscape and take in how far it stretches, your breath slowing as you realize how much there is beyond you. It is a gentle expansion, not a jolt. Now let us turn inward again, gently. The chambers beneath the pyramids can be a reflection of your inner world. Inside you there are memories, beliefs, hopes, fears, ideas. Some are out in the open like stones on the surface. Others are tucked away in deeper rooms visited less often. You might have a memory that feels like a quiet chamber, not forgotten but rarely opened. You might have a dream or a goal that lives in a side corridor, not in the main hallway of your daily thoughts. There might be places inside you that feel unfinished, like the rough-hewn subterranean chamber in the Great Pyramid, where work seems to have begun and then stopped. All of this is normal. No one's inner structure is perfectly smooth and symmetric. It is easy sometimes to feel uneasy about those hidden places, to think, I must explore everything, understand everything, tidy everything. But just as the pyramids function as enduring monuments, even with unexplained shafts and mysterious rooms, you too can live a full and meaningful life without fully mapping every corner of your inner landscape. Some chambers can stay dim and quiet for a long time, and that is okay. What matters most, perhaps, is that there is at least one safe, calm inner room where you can rest. Tonight, you're invited to imagine such a room and to spend a little time there as you drift towards sleep. Picture a corridor inside a pyramid, lit by a soft, warm glow. The walls are made of smooth stone blocks, cool to the touch. The ceiling is just high enough that you feel sheltered, but not cramped. You are walking slowly along this corridor in your mind, but it does not require effort. Each step is like the easy rise and fall of your breath. The corridor slopes very gently downward. With each step, the air becomes a little cooler, a little more still. The sounds of the outside world, voices, traffic, the noise of the day, grow fainter, as if you are moving deeper into soft cotton. You can still hear them if you strain your ears, but you do not need to. They are no longer your concern. Ahead, the corridor opens into a chamber. This chamber is not vast or intimidating. It is perfectly sized for you. The floor is level and smooth. The walls are plain but comforting, perhaps a light, warm colour in your mind's eye, or simply the natural tone of stone. The ceiling is high enough that you can breathe easily, and low enough that it feels like a protective hand resting lightly above you. In the centre of this chamber there is a resting place. You can imagine it as a simple stone platform covered with something soft, or as a mat, or even as a bed that echoes the one you're lying on now. You approach it and lie down in your imagination, feeling the surface beneath you, solid and secure. Here in this inner chamber, there is nothing you need to do, no inscriptions to read, no objects to examine, no puzzles to solve. This is not a place of thinking. It is a place of being. The only sounds are your own slow breaths, and perhaps a faint echo of your heartbeat, like a gentle drum in the distance. As you lie here, imagine that the pyramid above you is like a protective mountain. Layer upon layer of stone rests on the bedrock, and you rest comfortably in the hollow at its heart. You're completely safe. The air in this chamber is mild and easy to breathe. The walls are thick, shutting out the drafts and the noise. Now, bring your attention back to your physical breath. Feel the inhale, cool and quiet. Feel the exhale, warm and gentle. As you breathe in, you might imagine drawing stability up from the bedrock beneath you, like water rising through a tree's roots. As you breathe out, you might imagine releasing tension and worry, letting them seep into the stone and dissolve. No longer your burden to carry. With each breath you compare a simple image. Inhale, stars above. Exhale, stone beneath. Inhale, soft desert air. Exhale, sand settling into stillness. Inhale, calm curiosity. Exhale, the weight of the day. Over and over, with no need to force anything. Outside this inner chamber, outside the pyramid in your mind, the night sky stretches on. The stars, the planets, the galaxies, all of them are moving slowly through space. On Earth, oceans rise and fall, forests whisper, cities glow, and then quieten as people go to sleep. Beneath surfaces everywhere, hidden spaces continue their quiet work. Roots drinking water, animals resting, molten rock slowly shifting deep below the crust. You do not have to keep track of any of it. You do not have to hold the world together with your thoughts. Right now, your only task is to rest in this imagined chamber and let the world take care of itself for a while. If your mind wanders away, that is all right. It may drift back to a memory of something you did today or jump forward to something you might need to do tomorrow. It may spin stories or rehearse conversations. When you notice this happening, you can gently guide it back, not with frustration, but with kindness, as if you were leading a child by the hand back to a cozy bed. You might say inwardly, "We can think about that later. Right now we are in the quiet room," and then return to your breath. Inhale, stars above. Exhale, stone beneath. You can let the information we have explored tonight become simpler and simpler, like a picture losing its sharp details as you step back and half close your eyes. No more technical terms. No more specific dates or tools, just a handful of soft images. Sand, stone, stars, chambers, silence. Sand shifting and settling, remembering footsteps and then letting them go. Stone steady and patient, holding weight without complaint. Stars distant and constant, drifting slowly across the sky. Chambers cool and dark, protecting what they hold. Silence deep and gentle, wrapping everything in a soft embrace. You might repeat these words silently to yourself, if that feels soothing, or you might let them fade as soon as they are spoken, leaving only their echoes. If you are still somewhat awake, you can imagine yourself again at the edge of the desert night. You are lying on soft ground, wrapped in a blanket. The pyramids are nearby, their outlines just visible against the sky. The air is cool. Somewhere far off, you might hear a faint breeze. Above you, the stars are bright. You feel your body becoming heavier, as if it were turning into a small stone of its own nestled safely into the earth. Your thoughts become lighter, like grains of sand lifted and carried softly away by a gentle wind. You do not have to chase them, you can let them go. From where you lie, it is as if you can feel the bedrock deep beneath the pyramids, and beneath you too, stretching out in all directions. It has been there for millions of years. It will be there long after tonight. It does not hurry, it does not worry, it simply is. Allow yourself to borrow that sense of simple existence. You do not need to be productive or insightful or creative right now. You do not need to learn anything more or remember what you have heard. You are allowed to be nothing more and nothing less than a breathing being resting on the earth, carried through the night by forces older than any monument. We have travelled in our gentle way from the surface of the desert to the depths of ancient seas. We have stood beside the pyramids and imagined their construction, stone by stone. We have walked through inner corridors, visited burial chambers, and wandered among the worker villages that supported this great work. We have peered into boat pits and narrow shafts, and considered the slow, careful work of archaeologists and scientists uncovering the quiet stories buried beneath the pyramids. We have let these explorations expand outward, connecting to tree roots and burrows, to caves and oceans, to stars and hidden layers of the universe. And finally we have turned inward, recognizing that you, too, contain hidden chambers, places of memory and feeling and rest. It is enough. You've listened as much as you needed to. Perhaps your mind stayed with every word. Perhaps you dipped in and out, drifting towards sleep and then back again. Perhaps you are already hovering at the edge of dreams. However you have travelled through this, you have done it just right for you. You can let go now of any idea that you need to do anything more tonight. No more tasks, no more decisions, no more revisiting of conversations or planning of responses. All of that belongs to the daylight. The night is for something else. As you lie there, know that you are supported by your bed, by your pillow, by the room around you, by the quietness of this moment. Supported in a wider sense by the earth beneath you, by the same deep patience that holds up mountains and pyramids and oceans. Thank you for spending these quiet moments in the company of ancient stone and silent secrets. Thank you for allowing yourself this time to rest and drift and wonder. If sleep has not already come, it is welcome to arrive at any moment now, like a soft door closing gently on the noise of the world. You do not have to invite it in a particular way. You can simply make space for it. In your body, in your breath, in your thoughts, may your dreams, if they come, be spacious and calm like a starlit desert. May your worries grow smaller, like distant footprints blurred by wind. May you feel, in some quiet corner of yourself, as steady and supported as the stone beneath the pyramids. And as this stream of words grows fainter, you can let yourself drift further into your own inner chamber of rest, where there is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold, and where the night can stretch out around you soft and wide and gentle until morning finds you again.